Good morning. So I'm going to set my timer real quick. Stopwatch. All right, I got 30 minutes. Bonjour. Donc, désolé pour le faire en anglais si c'est un problème, mais ça va prendre un peu de temps pour moi de parler en français. J'espère que les slides vont être très explicites, and the way I present will also help give you this visual image so that you leave here understanding more than 80% of what I say, okay? Are you guys ready? Very ready. Not sleeping or anything. All right, we're going to get started. So, Best of Web, welcome, 2018. My name is Morgan Cabesi. I will be talking about Slack. Slack, not the app, but in fact, the idea of Slack. So, the agenda will be, we'll try to walk through how you can understand the idea, how you could then explain it, so it's not only good to know it to someone else, and then how we can actually apply it in our development workflow, or even in any kind of work, even or play or fun that you want to do. So, without further ado, I work in the business intelligence domain as a full-stack developer, web app, Polymer, Java REST services, in a company called Murex. I'm a pragmatic coach, so whether it's agile, lean, or soft or hard, or whatever you want to call it, I'm a coach. Murex's headquarters is in Paris. It's a fintech company, and we work with offices in Dublin for development and Beirut, Lebanon. So the team is distributed across these three offices. Is the English okay? Excellent. All right, so to give you some context, in case you haven't seen the website, so this is what I tried to put there. So are you in this situation? Okay, so you're practicing Scrum, or something like Scrum. Are you struggling to meet the demands and the requirements that you have? Yes, okay. Are you overcommitting in those iterations? And if you are committing just about it, but your velocity sort of changes. Sometimes you finish 30 story points, the next time you finish 20, then you finish 40, then you have this sort of zigzag velocity chart. If that's your case and you're feeling you're not really agile, but you're more fragile, okay? Right? I'll try to wake you up. You'll see. Okay, so if that's your situation, then you're at the right place and you really want to try to change that because you're also feeling very frustrated because you're always busy, you have no time to learn things, and we know how much we have to learn and grow so we can improve. We'll see that during the talk. So this is the context. If this thing interests you, stay here. If not, maybe you should go to the next talk, because that's what we're going to be talking about. We will answer this question, okay? How can we continuously learn and improve in an agile context while maintaining consistent delivery, long-term health, but at the same time, we'll have fun, we'll be happy, and productive. Okay? Cool. So, why do we care, right? You might ask me that question. Why does it matter? Because the only thing, there's this quote, like philosophical quote that says the only thing that's constant is change, right? So, disclaimer, I don't know what happened to these companies and why, right? But they're here. But you can understand that if you can't respond to change, you're bound to fail, right? Or at least you're at the risk of it. So that's why I try to introduce this idea of organizational slack. And Slack itself, organizational slack, is that degree of freedom that allows you to change, okay? How do we see this in the physical world? In the physical world, you have power lines, right? They sort of slack down. In fact, that's what they add slack to them. You know why, right? So that if there's wind or change in temperature, they don't just snap like that, right? Okay, same idea in the physical world. On the bridges, right? That is slack, because when it heats or whatever, it gets cold, it can contract and expand accordingly, therefore allowing it to not snap and stay in place. And so it has a degree of freedom to adapt to the change that is evident. So in the same way, if we apply this on an organizational level, right? Who knows what a drag race is? You know what this kind of race is, right? It's just straight, very fast car, a lot of high horsepower, and it can cover a lot of ground really quickly. So it looks something like this, and then you have to open up this parachute to try and stop. So you can imagine how difficult it would be for an organization that needs to change direction, okay? You can achieve a lot on the short run, and that's why we always feel like, no, it's okay, keep going. And then all of a sudden, you hit a hairpin, and you're supposed to pull this maneuver, but you really can't. You sort of get the visual representation of this. So we talk about agility, right? That's it. That's what agility is, right? It's to be able to change course when you can. It's not some dogmatic approach to some religious, idea. It's just, how can I be agile? It means, how can I change direction? So that's what we're going to focus about. This is one of the definitions that I picked about agility. It's the ability to create and respond to change in order to succeed in an uncertain and turbulent environment. And we all know that software development is an uncertain and turbulent environment. Does anyone disagree? Okay, that's comforting. All right, so Agile Manifesto, almost 20 years now. There's a bunch of values and a bunch of principles. The ones I'm going to focus on are they have to do with change and sustainability, to answer our first question. So, when you want to try and figure out something, I would recommend to always try to go back to the basics and the foundations. And they're very simple. You have a bunch of values and like some 12 principles. And what you can see, I just try to put a few quotes from there. Welcome changing requirements, even late in development. Build projects around motivated individuals. Agile processes promote sustainable development. So you're not going to burn out in 1 year or 1 month or whatever your pace is at, okay, like the dragster. So having said that, what is the goal in life? I mean, 42. The goal is to get something done, of course, but you're supposed to be able to do it while you enjoy it, and you can learn and grow while you do it, right? So that's your personal goal as a person. And in fact, an organization, as we'll see, needs to care about this, not because it's some benevolent force, but it's also a win-win situation. All right? So keep this in mind next time you try to stay late at work, and think about why that's happening. Stats, surveys. So good.co, you can check this workplace happiness out, and what it says, I have a laser. Okay. What it says is, so if you are happier, you're 20% better than those that are disengaged. So you're more engaged at work. You are, companies with engaged employees perform up to 200% better. You have higher productivity and higher creativity. And if you're in the sales department, your company starts to sell more. So how does this affect us? We tend to leave less, so we stick around. So that's good for the company. We get sick less accidents, so more effective, more performant, more happy, more money for the company. It's a win-win situation. It's a no-brainer when you look at it like that. It's not easy, but it's evident. I'll try to give you an example about a game. Okay, have you seen this type of game before? I'm not sure what we call it in French. It's called Game of 15 or Game of 8. So there's these tiles. Does anyone know this game? Okay, so imagine the idea of this game is what I'm going to show you in a bit. Is this. So this is what it looks like. So this is a small web app hosted on GitHub by Mr. Lorenzo. I had to fix a few bugs, and here it is. It's working. So there's this empty space here, right? And whoops. And this empty space allows you to move the stuff around. The whole point of the game is to reorder the tiles in a sorted manner. You get the drift, right? Does anyone not understand it? Mesmerizing, isn't it? Okay, I'm not going to continue. I only have 30 minutes. Usually I would. Then we can, we can compare scores. So, whoops, you got the idea. So that's the game on a smaller scale. It's a 3x3, not a 4x4, and there's an empty tile. So you get to move these things around, and then you bring in some consultant that says, I need to cut costs, I need to make things more efficient, and he's like, oh, there's a space. Let's add a 9, right? Great. So we're 11% more efficient. However, this is the only type of layout we can have. If tomorrow you hit that hairpin and you have to change into a 1, 2, 3, 4, 8, 6, or whatever it is, you cannot do that anymore, right? So that's the cost of efficiency. You can accomplish more, in fact, by doing less. And that's one way to think about it, by that, game of 15 game. So what is the cost of efficiency? You can make things better at a certain level, but make it overall less efficient or less optimal. And that's what we call sub-optimization. All right? So you're optimizing at a local context. To give you an example, this is work. So let's look at work. Work goes in from the left and comes out from the right. And that's you here. There's Bilal, your colleague, Jonathan, and Simona. And someone sends you work in, so the company's like, oh, there's this new idea that we have to build, and you're like, okay. And now you're very busy. You're like that game with 9 tiles now, okay? So you have no time. So you tell them, okay, put it in my backlog, which is this cube. And then when you start working on it and you send it to Bilal, Bilal says, I'm too busy. Put it in my backlog. You get the drift. So the time it takes for work to come in and go out, right, has to sum up this delays where it's just sitting in a box waiting, okay? So this is where you start to lose on efficiency, in fact, while you're trying to sub-optimize at a local context. So in that case, what do? That's how we bring Slack into the equation. If you introduce Slack, and at this level, at each level of all these nodes, all these people have some sort of capacity to say, okay, if there's anything that's unexpected, I can still handle it. And this will allow me to send the work in a more lean fashion, in a leaner fashion, quicker fashion, and it does not abrupt or make any of us overwork. Okay? Great. Not only does that happen, there's a wonderful experience that comes out of this. Is because someone like Bilal in this example would actually start to think, why are you even sending me this work? I'm not supposed to be receiving this. When Bilal was very busy, he'd get the email, he'll just forward it to Simona. He's like, okay, forward. And then he has no time to think. But when he has that time, he says, wait a minute, I'm not even supposed to be in this chain. And he can reinvent and say, look, guys, and do what's necessary to allow you to directly speak to Simona, and that's somehow you are being able to refactor the organization flow, okay? There's a book called Flow. You can check that if you're interested in things that are about work and going through a system. Very interesting. So that's how Slack can help you out. It is an investment, in fact, okay? And just like any investment, you sacrifice some capacity today, because you are hoping that in the long term, you have long-term health, right? So that's an investment. Okay, more visualizations. This is what you'd look like if you don't have Slack. You might feel like this at work. I certainly feel like this at work, even though I'm talking about this, right? So you gotta try very hard to get out of this situation, because it's much more wonderful to be chilling, right? Okay. So that sets the context, that explains the definition. We're almost 14 minutes in. Now we'll talk about how can we achieve that. You're still awake, right? Great. Cool. How do we do that? Well, what does it allow us to do? If we look at it from an agility and a software development and perspective, it gives us this capacity to change. It allows us to invest. It allows us to reduce stress, as we saw in those surveys. And it allows us, from an organizational perspective, to retain top talent, okay? Just a couple of things, just in case we're not all aware of these definitions, I'm going to go through. So an iteration is just, if you're doing Scrum or something similar or iterative development, it's that time box in which you plan for work and you try to achieve it. And within that, we have something called velocity, which is, the estimates you give to these items of work. There should be a 2 here, by the way. So this is some sort of Fibonacci way of estimating work. And the sum of all this work that you complete by the end of that iteration is your velocity. Then you have technical debt. So this is what everyone sees. That's what the team sees, in fact, en plus, which is your technical debt. And Martin Fowler explains something very interesting. He tries to break down technical debt into a quadrant of deliberate versus unintended on the y-axis and reckless versus careful on the x-axis. And what does that mean? So if it's deliberate and reckless, in fact, we don't have time for design. You know you have to design. You say, I don't have time. I'm like that puppy underwater. I don't have time for it. So it's a deliberate decision, and it's reckless. Unintended reckless is you don't know what layering is, and you just put everything in one place. It's not your fault, really. Deliberate and careful is when you get that deadline and the CEOs are yelling and, we're going to lose money and the company's going to close, and you're like, it's okay. We're going to ship. We will accept it and, probably have a plan to fix it, hopefully. So that's careful and deliberate. It's in the backlog somewhere. Careful and unintended is that you tried your best with all the things that you knew, but then later you're like, oh, now I understand. Okay, so that's careful and unintended. There's a source in the slides. You'll have the slides at the end. There's a link to it. It's a simple link. Voila. So that being said, we will introduce Slack into our iterations as a stabilizer. What does that mean? So we spoke about the context in the beginning. We said if your velocity is bouncing, so it looks something like this, similar picture, what you could do is commit to less. That's easy. It's really that easy. So here you got 32, 33, 26, 30, 28, etc. So 26 is the minimum. So you say, okay, next iteration, I'm only going to commit to 26. Okay, you might get asked the question, yeah, but that means I can't, your manager might say, yeah, but that means, people are not going to do more work. No, it's not the case. If we finish the 26, we can always pull from the backlog. You'll have more items there. However, if something comes in, so we take this 26 and we leave some 3, 5 story points out there. You put that for some work that is non-critical. It's not that you're not going to do any work, all right? But it's work that you can set aside if an emergency comes in, all right? So, we'll see some of those in a second, such as technical debt. Technical debt, it doesn't mean you have to be bad to accumulate technical debt. Anyone accumulates technical debt. The best team in the world will accumulate technical debt, okay? We're always too busy, and it's hard to get out of that, tunnel when you're in, and you're like, yeah, just leave me alone. I'm doing my thing, right? So, whoops. So this is another chart for you to see it. If you just keep doing that, best case scenario, your velocity doesn't really change much. But if you are able to clean up that technical debt, with time, your velocity will increase, so you actually have more time. So that time that you set aside to refactor and do things allows you to improve your velocity across time, which is an actual investment and a way that managers will be like, oh, that's great. Okay, I see where this is going. So what are examples of technical debt? Anyone? Tests. Yes. So, tests, definitely. I've named a few here. So, someone in the last Human Talks meetup mentioned that code is not just code, okay? Dependency versions, recurrent manual tasks, tests that are probably failing and you have to look at, they're unstable, static code analysis that's giving you all these, sonar, giving you some warnings in the dashboard, and you say, yeah, we'll deal with them later. Anyone? I see you. Variable names, it's called a car, but now it's a plane. We say it's okay, we know it's a car, but it's a plane, don't worry. Then the new guy comes in and says, but it says it's a car. No, it's a plane. Okay, now you know. Voila. So this is all technical debt, okay? It slows you down. If you add them up, it's very heavy. Okay, so let's tackle it. When? All the time. Not we set half a day to do it. All the time. So what you would do, in fact, is try and, so if you have a story, and you say, okay, I'm tackling some part of the code in this story, what I'm going to do is take some time to refactor the parts of the code that it's going to touch, all right? And that way, you refactor incrementally instead of just, one whole big bang. And you can incrementally start to refactor. Please refactor your new code, okay? Please refactor your new code. Your new code has to be, all right, to the best of your abilities. But if you're touching old code, try to refactor it. If there are manual tasks, automate them. Do some exploratory testing if you have the time. And if you have those static code analysis warnings on the code that you're changing, don't say something like, yeah, but it's already there. It's just okay, as long as I don't increase it. That's a good approach. But if you can spend more time to fix it, do that. So that's one way to tackle technical debt incrementally. Now, that's not enough. We want to learn and grow, right? We don't want to only be sustainable and start to perform better. So things you can do, because we know that we have to continuously improve in software development, and this allows you to learn things, share them with your colleagues, apply them at your, on the stuff that you're working on, and widen your range to allow you to see things from different perspectives. So what you can do to apply this, to put in research time, is a day before the sprint ends. So the sprint ends on Friday, Thursday morning. So it's better in the morning so that you're not busy with something else and then you end up canceling it in the afternoon, because, that can happen. The entire team takes this half a day. You sit together, you decide, or sit alone, and you decide what you want to work on. And if you are a manager and sort of saying, yeah, but I don't want them to just sit and play golf or, I don't know, something, you can have a team lunch to share the findings, and it's great. It's a great way for everyone to be motivated and share the information together. You could spend that time reading books. Here's some books I've read back in the day and I would recommend. You'll get these slides. And you can watch videos together if you'd like to, instead of doing things separately and learning a new framework, something like that, you can actually do the work together. Each team is different, so know your team. You could take courses together and create some sort of gamification experience. Who did which lecture? Did you do the assignment? Et cetera, like that. You can put it on a wiki page and track that process. People love that, in fact. Okay? Now, that's great. So we have our 20%, which is slack. We have the work. And the slack is the non-critical, which is that time that we're incrementally tackling technical debt and that half a day for the team to learn. If we have an emergency, so the CI could be failing because of the tests, or network issue, forbid you have a proxy, doesn't allow you to connect to GitHub or NPM or something for some reason. You have new work coming in, a story turned out to be 13 story points and not 2. That happens, right? What do you do in that case? You work harder, but if you had that slack, you can use it. You can use it to your advantage. Now, it acts as your shock absorber, like in your car. If the road is straight, it's good. If there's a hole, boom, you don't even feel it. You're in the car, you're like, what's up? What was that? Right? So it's that buffer. Everything's okay, you get to refactor. Not you refactor less from the old code. And if it is new code, as we said, I'm not saying that you shouldn't refactor new code, okay? And if it's much of a bigger problem, you can cancel that research time, that half a day, and you can say, guys, look, we're taking this collective decision. We need to finish this 13 story point. We're not going to research, unfortunately, this sprint. Let's all tackle it and swarm together on finishing this story. And if it's much bigger than that, I can't help you there. Slack won't help you there. You have to retrospect. You have your retrospective, think about it, and see how you can improve and what's really, it's a much bigger problem, and you can deal with that. However, if you're always canceling your slack time, it means you don't have slack, okay? So you're going back to where we started in the beginning, and that means you should commit to less. Okay, so if you do that, you'll consistently meet your iteration requirements. You rarely need overtime. And by spending that time paying down that technical debt, you improve your code, your productivity improves, and therefore, anything new that you also have to implement becomes easier to implement. Okay? That research time that you have allows you to learn and see things from different perspectives, makes you a more effective developer. And overall, I can only see it to be a win-win situation for both you as a developer or individual or product owner, or product manager, or whatever it is that is your line of work. And from an organizational perspective, it's also a win. So please invest in Slack because you invest in yourself, you invest in your organization, and the long-term health of you both. Voila. So, references, if you're interested and you'd like to dig deeper, the Art of Agile Development has a section on Slack and how you can implement it. The book Slack from the 90s by Tom DeMarco, Slack, Getting Past Burnout, Busy Work, and the Myth of Total Efficiency, as well, is very centered on Slack and in a business perspective, in fact, not only software development. So it's very cool if you really want to dig into more ideas. And the slides will be here. So you can take a photo of this if you'd like. So it's slides/MCMO, and it's the latest one. The Human Talks meetup I gave, I only had 10 minutes, so I was speaking like that. I think half of the people understood. This is here, and that's my social media, tweet, tag, LinkedIn. Okay? Voila. Thank you very much. So 26 minutes, 56 seconds. If you have any questions, now will be the time. And if you are not too comfortable asking me right here, it's going to take a while, you can... Oui. If you don't have the, if you'd rather not ask me the question, you could just, you don't want to ask me here, you can ask me in private or anonymously. Sli.do, sli.do, Slack as a hash code. And you can ask and I can reply at any time, okay? And if you have more questions about that or how you would like to implement that, you can hit me up on Twitter. So it's MC_Mo. All right? Any questions? Are you still awake? Yeah. Oh, see, I told you I'll wake you up.
Hi, I try in English. Do you necessarily put this slack time at the end of the sprint and not cut in the middle or any time? Because it's like a fresh air to me. I know it doesn't work for me at the end of the sprint.
Okay, so the technical debt part, okay, is everywhere. It's in all your stories. It's as you are working. The research time is at the end because usually in the beginning, you're less likely to know what's going to impact you. Things are going to change more. But as you get closer to the end, that's where things start to crystallize. So that's why it's better to have it closer to the end. If you do it in the beginning, you're going to always do your research time, because only in the end are you going to realize, oh, but we don't have the time, but I can't go back in time anymore. So that's why it's good for the research time to be at the end. Okay?
On a le temps pour une dernière question.
Have you had any experience implementing this with non-developer teams?
Yes. Yes.
And
so, yes.
How did it go?
How can I say this? So, do you have some specific example? Like
yeah, we have kind of integration. It's like semi-technical, but they have to produce work.
Yes.
But they don't have the developer agility culture.
Okay.
And so I think this would apply to them perfectly, but it's kind of, I think, hard to
implement.
Yeah, or give make it understood to them that this will help.
Okay. You could imply this, a naive approach would be just to leave some time. So if they get assigned items, you assign 2 less items in case you have this variability of work. That's the first way you can start. Okay?
I'd love to discuss that with you later.
Please.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it? Am I done, or do I have a minute?
Yes, it's finished.
Finished. Okay. Thank you very much for your attendance. Enjoy. Best of web. Thank you.